Good afternoon. I'm John Fiore. I am a glassaholic. This is my husband, Michael. We've been collecting glass for 25 years. I started out actually when I was vice mayor of Wilton Manors as a way to go around to yard sales to meet residents I would never know, so maybe I could become mayor, which I did. But I figured I better start buying some stuff from them. I saw this colored glass and said, oh, this is sort of cool. We can use this. So I started buying this because I figured, well, if I didn't, they're going to say, oh yeah, the vice mayor showed up. Cheap bastard didn't buy anything from us. So we bought some more, we bought more. We found out that it was worth something. We started to sell a little bit of it. The first little sale was on the jib from our dinghy lying in a little parking lot. We sold $40. We thought we died and went to heaven. Boy, has that changed. So we're happy invited back to the Hollywood Historical Society. I'm a member of Wilton Manors Historical Society, so I do appreciate all of your interest in keeping the history of your city alive for future generations. Depression era glass was glass made.
Before you started that, you wanted to
What?
tell them who didn't have tickets, please come.
Oh, those of you who don't have tickets for the raffle, we're raffling off this vase here. And if you don't, raise your hand and Michael will come and give you tickets. Okay, and over here. So, basically Depression era glass was an inexpensive, mass-produced, machine-made or pressed glass that had a marginal quality with imperfections made from the 20s to the 50s with over 100 patterns that were made. And there was a quote that I got out from one of the books is, useful glassware produced in a variety of colors during a period that roughly dates between 1920 and 1940. It was the first mass-produced glassware made totally by machine, distributed nationally, and sold cheaply. It was pretty and plentiful. It was poor quality glass made with interesting patterns and colors. Not only was it sold in places like Woolworths, those of us that are old enough to remember Woolworths, but you also would go to the movie theater in the 30s with your 10-cent ticket, and they give you a piece of glass. With the idea that next week you'd have to come to get the second piece that would go with that pattern. You could build a little dinner set or a luncheon set with it. And that's how they kept getting you to come back to the theaters all the time. The other part of Depression glass is what we call elegant glass. And this was an expensive, high quality, limited production, mold blown, partially handmade glass with really fire polished finishes, really vibrant colors, ground bottoms, and it was an alternative in a lot of times for fine china. It was made from the 20s to the 50s and 60s. So, little history. The American Glass Company started progress from pressed glass era of the 1880s. This was an era where they started being able to produce glass in quantities because initially most of the glass was being made in the New England area, on Cape Cod and that area, and they were using the fire, for the furnaces for the glass, we're using wood, trees. That's why you don't see a lot of trees on Cape Cod anymore. They cut them all down back in the 1860s and 70s. But then also at that time they were discovering coal out in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio. And coal was a much better alternative than wood. So a lot of the glass companies started opening up there, dozens and dozens of them. Shortly after, they discovered this wonderful new thing called natural gas. That was even better than coal. And so, as an example, Fostoria Glass Company, one of the biggest companies that made elegant glass, they opened up their first shops in Fostoria, Ohio. And they had a deal there where they would open up the glass, hire people from the town, and then they would get the gas from the city because the city had the gas. So that was their arrangement. 3 years later, they ran out of gas. So they moved to Moundsville, West Virginia, where they found a lot more gas. And they were using the gas from Moundsville until 1986. So the industry slowly progressed. It was actually a huge industry back in the late 1800s up to the mid 1900s. But they started introducing color because a lot of the time it was just all crystal color or clear glass, and they did solid and opalescent glasses. And they started bringing in some of the top designers from England, because England was recently producing probably some of the best glass in the world at that time. They brought in James Webb, George Duncan, and Frederick Carter. Frederick Carter founded Steuben. And in 1888, they basically invented the mass-produced glass blowing machines. And that's when it really just exploded. That's the Industrial Revolution came into glass production. And the companies were located in Ohio, West Virginia, Western Maryland, and Pennsylvania, and also a little bit in Western New York State, because that's where the gas was located. And also the cheap natural gas, and also the location, a lot of the minerals and transportation was around from that area, so it made the production of the glass more affordable. As I said, the Depression glass, they gave it away if you could sell it at 5 and dime stores, but it was giveaways at movie theaters, gas stations. It was in laundry detergent boxes. It was in oatmeal containers. And some of the stuff that's here, that's how you would have found it. The elegant glass, that was in fine department stores and jewelry stores. They were marketed as wedding presents, and some of the patterns were actually complementary to existing china patterns. So if you had a china pattern that had a pattern on it, they'd work with one of the glass manufacturers to manufacture the stemware that would actually have the same pattern on it that the china would have, just so you'd have a more elegant. And actually, at some point, then the silver companies were making the same silverware to go along with the rest of the patterns. I mean, one of the patterns, like First Love by Duncan and Biller, and 1847 Roger Silversmith. Then Navarre was done by Fostoria, and Coronation by Community Plate. So they all did the same. They all worked together with the silver and the china companies. Unfortunately, in the 50s, lifestyle started changing. People were a lot more casual, and there was new products that they were using: aluminum, and this other new one called plastic. And how many remember growing up with plastic plates as kids? Melamine, exactly. Just don't put it in the microwave. We still use melamine, but never ever put it in the microwave because it will bubble. And it was great when you had a whole bunch of little kids going around dropping them on the floor. They just watch them bounce, you pick them up and put them on the table. But also they were dealing with higher costs and material costs. Plus they started getting, in the 50s, imports from Europe and Japan that were cutting the costs of Americans. They were low-cost imports. Some of the companies didn't survive the fires. These companies had these huge furnaces to heat, going so they could mold and make the glass into a molten glob and then blow it. Well, the problem is, for some strange reason, most of these glass companies built their buildings out of wood. Fire marshals would not approve that today. And they burned down. They build them again. They burn down or they go out of business. That was not uncommon. And then also during the Great Depression, a lot of companies just couldn't afford to stay in business, which is unfortunate because a lot of great companies sort of went by the wayside. And then companies like Heisey and Payden City and Cambridge, which were really top companies, they survived until the 50s, but some lasted to the 80s. Imperial closed in 84, Fostoria closed in 86, the Zell Viking in 89, Steuben closed in 2011, but the Corning Museum bought it, and now they're producing it again out of their own furnaces in the Corning Museum up in Corning, New York. And Fenton is still making, they were making glass beads and stuff. They're basically a slid now. But some companies, like Summit, have bought the molds and are reproducing them. So when you go to buy some of this stuff, you got to know what you're doing. And be careful, because some of the reproductions that are done from the original mold, because these companies went out of business, they sold their molds. And these other companies bought them and then started using the molds to make it out of their name. The problem is, some of it's not collectible, or certainly if it is, it's certainly not the value of what the original stuff is. And again, that goes to learning what you're collecting. And then some of the glass companies went into things like producing milk bottles, test tubes, car headlights, and then many changed their names as they were bought by other companies and merged into big corporations. Some of the Depression glass companies: Anchor Hocking, Belmont Tumbler Company, Diamond Glassware, Economy Glass, Indiana, Jeanette, Federal Glass, Fry, Hazel Atlas, Hocking, Jenkins, Lancaster, Liberty, McKee, L.E. Smith, U.S. Glass, and many others. There was 92 different glass patterns made by 7 companies, which there's the challenge. The elegant glass companies, which was the good glass, was Cambridge, Central Glass, Consolidated, Duncan & Miller, Fenton, Fostoria, Heisey, Imperial, Morgantown, New Moundsville, Payden City, Pearpoint, Tiffin, Viking, Westmoreland, and others. Now, the common colors were, crystal, pink, in the Depression glass, crystal, pink, pale blue, and amber. Now, there's some less common colors: yellow, ultramarine, jadeite, delphite, cobalt blue, ruby, royal ruby, which is a darker ruby, black amethyst, monex, and milk glass. The elegant had basically a lot of the same colors, but they also would do things like Vaseline glass, which I'll show you, alexandrite, some soft pastels and opaques and opalescent treatments that they did. That was really the sign of a better company doing them. And these glass companies kept their colors a secret. There's one story where one of the glass companies, their chief chemist, came up with the formulas for the glass, died. He didn't write down the formulas anywhere. They were out of business for about 4 or 5 months as they're trying to figure out how to make these colors. They came close, but they were never the same. This happened about 1960. I can't remember which company it was. It might have been Imperial. And their colors were never quite the same afterwards. And then a lot of this stuff was also decorated, which I'll show you. It was acid etching, cuttings. A lot of the glass would have molds in it that they'd press in it while they were making it. There was also some fired on colors. They do gold and platinum encrustments, which I'll show you, enamel decorations, and they'll do pressed glass to make it look like cut glass. And they did Art Deco and flowers, fancy, more traditional designs. But they also, you could buy luncheon sets, beverage sets, little starter sets. And then they did full line sets where every imaginable piece you could think of to put on a dinner table, they would make. Companies like Fostoria did American, Candlewick by Imperial, Lariat by Heisey, and Rose Point by Cambridge. These were massive patterns. I mean, they would have 100 different things that they would make. If you could imagine it, they would make it for you. It is a very popular thing to still collect. Very popular items are sold on eBay, also Etsy. Prices, like most collectibles, are currently depressed, so it's a good time to buy. The market, as I said, has changed. It's not what it was 20, 25 years ago, the prices of stuff, but if you like it, it's a good time to buy it. And people say that, collecting, antiques and Depression glass is dead because young people aren't collecting it. We're finding that's changing. When we have yard sales, and we'll put 1,000 pieces of glass out. Everything's identified, what it is, who made it, the years it was made, the manufacturer, the book price, and then sell it at half a book price. And then if they make a big pile, they even get a better price. We love big piles. But we'll have them come in and they're like, well, what's all this stuff? And I said, it's Depression glass. Is that people suffering mental illnesses? In a way, yeah, it really is. But then I have to explain to them, no, it's glass made during the Great Depression. Well, what's that? I have to explain that to them. And then I explain it to them, and they think, well, this is sort of cool. They'll buy a couple of pieces, and then at the yard sale, then they hand me a credit card, Yes, we take credit cards. We now take Venmo too, because you have to.
Yep.
But I usually tell people, when you're going to collect it, collect what you like, not what people say, oh, this is what you need to collect. If you don't like it, don't collect it. Collect what you really want, no matter what it is, whether it's glass or paintings or horseshoes. It doesn't matter. And some colors might not be what fits in your home as well as others, so you might look to see what colors work in your home. Some people like collecting one pattern, some like collecting any pattern, all of the patterns. Yeah. Normally we tell people, if you're going to collect, try the more of the smaller, less expensive stuff to see if you like it, like little luncheon sets or things like that. And it's easier to find those patterns to start with. And then if you like, you can move on to bigger patterns. Now, if you are going to collect, there's three books. There's three books that I recommend. One is Mosey's Depression Glass. Okay. The second is, that's by Barbara and Jim Mosey. The Elegant Glass book, Elegant Glass by Debbie and Randy Coe. And finally, the third one is 40s, 50s, and 60s glass. This is by Jean Florence. They're great reference books. But these three books will probably cover about 75–80% of the stuff you're going to find. For us, then, it's another 200 books at home that might get us the remaining 15–20%. And sometimes you just can't figure it out. But you know what? If you really like it, enjoy it, it doesn't really matter. But the prices in here, we basically cut those down in half nowadays. So, I mean, if you're looking at something and you're referencing in the books, you figure out, okay, the price, let's say, is $40. Reality in today is probably a $20, $25 piece of glass. So now that you're interested and want to buy some, where do you go? Glass shows, like our South Florida Depression Glass Show. We have cards in the back. Internet, eBay, Etsy are great places. Yard sales. It's amazing what we find at yard sales. We're out every Saturday morning and Sunday hunting for stuff in yard sales. Flea markets, thrift shops, consignment shops, they're all great sources to find stuff. So, and now how to take care of this stuff. Some glass you'll find is called sick glass. You'll pick it up and it's sort of cloudy and you wash it, you dry it off and it's still cloudy. That's because basically somebody put it in the dishwasher. It can't be repaired. Unless it's a really, really, really expensive piece of glass. We're talking in the thousands. It possibly could be polished out and paying someone quite a few $100s to do it. So if it's sick, leave it. And a lot of times if it's cloudy, which sometimes you see it gets cloudy, my finger and rub it inside, and if it cleans up, then I know it's good. If not, I walk away.
Now, it's also with vases, if you leave standing water in it for too long, that will also do the same thing to it. You all know what I'm talking about with this, and so choose, if you're gonna put flowers into a vase, choose a vase that you don't really have a whole lot of value into it for, and it's going and use the vase itself that you really like more for artwork. Okay?
And also, dry your glass after you're washing it to ensure it doesn't get sick. Don't let the glass sit in it on the counter. Don't buy glass that's got large chips, certainly not cracked. Small chips can be repaired. At our show, we have a person that can repair little chips out of the glass. He'll grind them down and polish them. One of the best ways to see how something feels, your fingers can see where your eyes can't. And I'll run my fingers around something, don't even look at it. And if there's a little chip or something in it, I'll feel it. But a lot of times you won't see it with your eyes because it can be real small. There are reproductions out there. Again, new companies bought the molds from the old companies like Summit and some of the others. You need to know your pattern. And I mean, some of the ones that are being reproduced is Cherry Blossom, Madrid, Mayfair, Iris, Herringbone. Some of these books do list the reproduction, some don't. The colors can vary widely. Even the same pattern depends on the color batch when they're making it. Pink is one that you'll see sometimes it'll be a darker, almost like an orangey color, and sometimes a more pale pink. And that again, it depends the time of the day. The furnaces, toward the end of the day, the furnaces are starting to cool off a bit, and then it'll get more toward the orangey color. On the depression glass, the elegant glass companies wouldn't let that happen. You know, they're much more fussy on their manufacturing. Glass get scratches. Well, after 75, 80 years, you expect to see some little scratches on the bottom. Avoid pieces with numerous big scratches in it, but a lot of times if you pick up a piece, say like this little piece, and you look on the bottom, you'll see wear marks where it's just been slid around for many, many, many years. That's sort of like a scratch. It's sort of like a scratch. So that's okay. That's actually when I go to pick up something, I look at it, and it's like, okay, it's got wear on the bottom. That means it's not a reproduction. That means it's old.
And then you also take a look, John was mentioning about scratches being in the bottom. You may notice something that would look like a scratch, maybe it
Straw
look
mark.
like a crack. It's called a mold mark. This is when it was being cooled. I actually had a woman that asked me, she said,
Straw mark, yeah.
yeah, she was going like, oh, is that when they laid it on the straw to cool? And I was going like, really?
Something about laying a 1,000-degree piece of glass on straw is not a good idea.
So that's why all the factory turned down. So that makes sense to me. So,
It looks like a little piece. Sometimes you'll see like a little wrinkle or something. It's called a straw mark. That's just a manufacturing defect that doesn't really affect. If I had a choice of buying two things, one did have it and one didn't, I'd buy the one that didn't have it, but I probably would buy both of them anyway. It's hard not to.
but you know, something more too heavily scratched, we'd buy the one with the straw mark.
Yeah, because that's a manufacturing way it was done. If it's cracked, just don't even waste your time with it. And also, when you're shopping online, you want to make sure that there's no damage before shipping, and then verify the return policy. So in case there is damage, you can return it. And the other thing is, avoid putting old, clear American pattern glass in the window in direct sunlight for a long time, because it might turn into a very pale purple. It's called sun purple. It's sort of pretty. And there's also companies now that are irradiating the glass to make it look sun purple. Some glass companies are doing that now.
With a UV light, yes.
Yeah. So the best thing is if you have the glass, enjoy it, use it carefully, hand wash it and dry it. Put a mat or towel at the bottom of the sink, so in case it slips out of your hand, it's not going to hit the bottom of the sink. We use a metal grill, so if it bounces, just bounce off of it. And we're using it to entertaining. We generally will take out some of the less fragile patterns depending on who's coming over. Unless we know if they're glass collectors, then we'll bring out the good stuff.
We've had some that's come over that we've had stemware that we put out that's probably worth $1,000 each on that. And they said, you're willing to be able to allow us to use this? If I didn't trust you, you'd be drinking out of a Dixie cup.
So, now, and everyone's got their ticket, so we'll do that at the end. Or you want to do it now?
At the end, yes.
Yeah. Or we can do it now because I'm standing right here.
Okay, Abigail? We're going to have Abigail.
Oh, great.
Six zero.
Whoa, was that close?
Yeah, and everyone's getting their glasses on.
Six
Here
zero.
you go. Here you go. This pattern's called Manhattan. That's a vase, and that was very Art Deco modern pattern from the 1930s. Well, I wasn't really going to talk about this, but we brought it anyway. But This is, I don't even have a clue who made this. But this is here, they did an etching on it, and you can see the gold that was put on it. And they did a really nice job. This is a nice piece. But I'm going to start at the older stuff. This is early American pattern glass. This is called Westward Ho. They have the Indian on the top of this comport. And then around it, they have the buffalo, the log cabin, an elk, and all the trees. And this was done by Gillander and Son, 1879. And it books from like $75 to about $150 piece. But it's cool with the Indian on top. And they made this is sort of at the heyday of the beginning of the glass industry back in the 1870s. They were exploding all over the place, making so many cool pieces. I was at a convention. We were up in Indianapolis, and it was at the Mega Glass Convention. And can you hear me back there?
Yes.
Okay, where I can use the mic.
Yes.
Now, I'll just yell, because otherwise I'll need two hands. And I was talking to the president of the American Pattern Glass Company, which is this is pattern glass as well. And I was complaining how difficult it was to try to figure it out. This is 10 years ago, something like that. And he goes, yeah, I know, we got over 1,000 different patterns. Standing with us was the president of the American Brilliant Glass Club. This is American Brilliant Cut Glass. This is from probably the 1880s. This weighs a ton. There's a lot of lead in this. He just sort of laughed and went, yeah, we have over 10,000 patterns.
Oh.
I have no clue who made this, and I'm not going to try to figure it out. This is for a cheese. And this would have been used, and if you bought this in the 1880s, you had money. They also made stuff that was pressed that sort of looked like this, that the middle class would have. But you can also tell when you the crystal, and it's still ringing. That's an expensive piece of glass, but and it's funny, I don't use it. I'm afraid to, because it really is very heavy. We also mentioned the carnival glass. Here's an iridized piece of carnival glass. This is a really good iridizing that they did. And this was Fenton Holly and a cobalt iridizing pattern. And this was done probably before World War I. And this is, their Holly pattern. But if you look at it, it's on cobalt glass. The most common that you see is done on the amber glass, like this. This is amber glass. Obviously, it's not iridized. And this is Adams and Company. It was called Wildflower, and it was made from 1871 to 1890. This pattern, and these are little little bowls that went with it. This would also have all the tumblers that would have gone with it. Generally, footed tumblers.
And the carnival glass in that color would have been called marigold.
Yeah, which is probably the least desirable of the colors. I'm just going to clean that out inside. But this is made by Northwood, and this is a. You can see it. We'll turn the lights off later. But this has uranium in it, and this was a little cream pitcher, and this is got gold on it. All this painting was all added to it at the factory, and
Is that safe to use, John?
yeah,
With uranium in it?
yeah.
And usually the color on that opaque was called custard.
Yeah, it's a custard glass. The one thing that I collect is the old colored Steuben. And it's not Steuben, it's Steuben. I'm from Steuben County. We're very fussy about that. And it was in Corning, and it was made in Corning, New York.
It's Corningware still up there with a factory?
They never had a factory there, but their world headquarters is still there. All their factories are in probably Eastern Europe. But this is a piece, I just got this at an auction at a really great price. This is blue aurine. And they actually have it marked. It's got a ground bottom on it, and it says aurine, and it has their 2687. So you can look it up in the book, and you see this was their 6-inch bowl. I lucked out paying $90 for this thing. This is probably about a $400 piece easily. And the coloring on the aurine is just gorgeous. They also made a gold aurine.
And we did a talk, was it last year up in Boca, to the Women's Club, on Steuben glass, and I loved where a woman came up to me and she said, "Please pronounce this correctly." She goes, "I don't know if I pronounce it correctly," and she goes, "I know my maid does it." And I said, "Well, why is that?" She was going, "You pronounce it Steuben glass." She said, "I tell my maid to be able to clean this." She said, "Oh, I have to clean that stupid glass again." So, but it's called Steuben, not stupid.
Yeah, that's the Boca Antique Club. That's the Boca Antique Club.
Okay.
Only women are allowed to be members. Only a maximum of 50 women can be members. They all show up wearing their dresses, their high heels, the gloves, the hats, the whole routine. Yeah, it's Boca. And they pay us to show up. But they're very nice, and we do nice presentations with them. This is a piece of Fostoria drape. And I like the concept of the design with the water down here would give this a lot of more weight at the base as you put tall flowers in it so it wouldn't flip over. So the people who designed this did a good job. But this is what was pulled. This was a lot smaller piece, and they pulled it, and that's how they got all these drapes in it. And
again, we never put flowers in.
now, or if you do it for like one afternoon, you take them out and put them someplace else. This pattern is Fostoria American, made by Fostoria from 1916 to 1986. We've got, 442 pieces in this pattern? If they could have made it in glass and used it for something in the house, they made it. And that amazing the amount of different stuff they made. Like these vases, they made these vases even as tall as this in this pattern. This was...
They even had the banana boat.
Yeah, the banana boats, and you name it.
Which is very rare to come by, and it's worth thousands to be able to.
This is not a wine goblet. This is a water goblet. Because back then, wine goblets were little. Because wine was expensive. Or, depending when, illegal in the 20s. So this was considered to be a water goblet. Now it certainly would be a wine glass. Michael, this is...
That is made by Tiffin. The pattern is called Aurora. And the color is called Old Gold.
Yep.
It's a lovely little, and well, what it basically is just a small little comport.
Yeah. And we'll be turning the lights off in a little bit so you can see what this looks like with the black light. Because these pieces here, this is Vaseline glass. This will glow under black light too, but it's not Vaseline. Only the yellow is. And this is a pattern here where they would actually put something on the glass and remove it to get this broken feel on it. And this is a center handle server. Michael collects them. I don't know how many he's got.
I don't know either. I stopped counting. And that one was made by Tiffin. The pattern on that was called Jack Frost because it does look like frost that's on your windows when you're up north. That's kind of the pattern. That was kind of the look they were going for.
For those people who've been up north and saw frost on the windows.
And they didn't make many of that, so it's in much of it. So we find it when we find it, we get it.
Now, here's something that you can see. This is made by Bryce. It's called Cathedral in 1888. And this is like a sauce boat or sort of one of these, whatever, candy or whatever you want it to be. This is made by Fostoria in the 1960s. And basically, is serving the same purpose. So, and basically, I mean, this was basically a bowl that they just heated it up and bent the end of it up. So it's funny, designs that they did in the 1880s, they were still doing in the 1980s.
And this one was made to serve as a bonbon, for serving bonbon.
Bonbon? Bonbon? No bonbons. This is plain, but I wanted to bring it. This is a champagne glass. This back then, but it had a hollow stem. So when you poured your champagne in there, you could see the bubbles coming up. And are a real pain to clean. I have a real small little thing I can get in there and clean it, but yeah, I just thought you'd find that interesting. Back in the 30s, this was in the 40s when you bought champagne glasses for weddings or whatever for people. This is what they were served in. This is a water tumbler made by Belmont. It's called Cameo. It's got a little cameo rose up there. And this was done in 1931. Just to give you an idea. This is a $20 piece of glass. I'm going to go to these here. That was the Fostoria American pattern. This was Jeanette Cube. They copied it. They stole the pattern. I'm surprised they didn't get sued over it, but they made this pattern from 29 to 33. This is actually the first pattern we started collecting in pink. And then we found all the one in the American in crystal. So we still have both of them. And then a couple of pieces in the green. This little bowl is called Princess. And it's 1931 and 34. It was made by Hocking before it became Anchor Hocking. And it's just a salad bowl or vegetable bowl. Sort of an unusual shape to it, though. Normally they're sort of rolled out this way. This is a little bit different. Serving platter. It's called Parrot. See the parrots in here? This is one of the more pricey patterns you can find because they only made it for a couple of years. I think it was like 29 to 30 or something like that.
They only made that for a couple of years, and there was a reason behind it. It was going like, it wasn't that the sales weren't all that great with it. It was that they looked at the design of it, and when people would end up using it, they would end up having a whole lot of utensil marks. You see where there's just a lot of space to where it's open that's in here? And the reason they did that, and there was going like, so they redesigned it, and then they made it more like this, so that way that the utensil marks wouldn't show up.
All the knife scratches and
All
stuff.
the scratches, that they did more of a pattern into it. It wasn't, so that's why this is more desirable right now, is because they only did it for a couple of years.
And that goes back to, if it doesn't have this, if it's got a lot of scratches, you avoid it.
Lovingly used is what we
Yeah.
like to call that.
This, anyone know what this is?
Candy.
It's a whipped cream pail. And this is palm brocade by Fostoria. You can see the palms in it. And they did quite a different things in, they made patterns or shapes that they use this for. But it also came in blue and pink. And this is one of the pricier, more collectible patterns that Fostoria make, especially in Florida. Gee, I wonder why. Palms.
Did you want to turn the light off to show the Vaseline and?
Yeah. So we're going to turn the lights off.
For a minute to be able to explain the difference between Vaseline and uranium glass.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, first of all, there's the custard glass.
Hold on, John. Okay. You can see the difference.
Yeah.
And in different pieces that you do see in the green, sometimes the glass will glow a little bit more, all depending on the thickness of it. And then if it's too thick, maybe then it won't glow as much. Sometimes we've seen it, we'll set it out in the sun and it will glow just by being in the sun. It'll have so much uranium in it.
Now let's see what else we got here that glows.
And then we have the one other piece.
Salad bowl. Yeah. There was one other piece I was going to show while we had the lights off here. Where was that piece? Michael, turn that off a second. Michael, turn that light off a second.
Oh, sorry.
This is diachromatic glass. Lavender. Notice under the lavender color under this light. This is by Cambridge. Michael, turn it on. Now it's blue. A very pale blue. This is a real pricey color. They didn't make much of it. So, and again, we have a lot of the various patterns. This is for putting ice around it, and you have your crab meat in it.
It's what's called a seafood icer. This was made by Cambridge. It's amber. They made it in several colors. They would have a taller insert for tomato juice. This one was for crab meat. And then they would have a concave bowl in the center for another one that would be for the fruit cocktail. So to be able to find all three inserts with your thing is very rare. We do have some of them at home, but didn't bring them today.
This is one of the etched patterns. This is Rose Point by Cambridge. It's definitely probably one of the most popular patterns. Also another one, this is Heisey. It's got orchid in it. We have friends of ours that are dealers in Heisey, and they go to the orchid shows just to sell this glass, and they do well. Here's another water goblet. The reason I brought this has the gold as the etch on it, and they put the gold on it just for more decoration. And again, various different pink Depression era glass. Sugar shaker. So you could put your powdered sugar onto your little cookie or whatever.
That's not enough for me.
There's also opaque glasses. And these are both Cambridge. And this is a blue opaque, and this is their, what was the color of this one, Mike? The pink?
That's Crown Tuscan.
Crown Tuscan. And he's just got the dolphin foot and the shell in it. This is a candlestick holder. They had a rather extensive line of that. Now, this is probably the rarest piece up here. This is called Ruba-Rhombic by Consolidated Glass. It is an amazingly Art Deco design. I don't know if you can see it. It's better on the chart. It's real rare. They didn't make a lot of it. And this is probably the least popular color. It doesn't matter. I mean, this is a $500 piece of glass.
John, turn it this way, please.
That again?
Pardon?
Who made that again?
It's Consolidated Glass, Ruba-Rhombic.
Consolidated made that, and it was like, we have a creamer at home that's like that, that's got a crack in it and a chip, and it's still worth hundreds of dollars because people that collect it,
It doesn't-
matter.
'Cause they can't find it.
Because you cannot find this stuff.
We bought, was it 6 tumblers?
8 tumblers and 6 little salad plates.
Cost us $2,500.
Do you ever go to the?
We plan to double our money when we sell it.
Yeah, I would think you do.
It's just one of those things that, even at that, I was having cardiac arrest writing a check for that amount. I really was. But it's one of those things that we'll put it out there and people just run to it. So this is a candlestick by Fostoria, and you can see this got the Morning Glory. This is like they did like a sandblasting on this to do this. This is another design. This is from the 50s. And they did bowls and other stuff. It's really quite pretty. A lot of the companies, this is a frosted thing. This is by Payden City. This is from the 50s. And not only is it frosted, but it had the silver overlay. Which, yes, and you have to polish it. And again, you don't want to put it in the dishwasher. The only thing with this, you see a lot of times they'll say 50th anniversary or 25th anniversary on it. They're sold like that, but not as common as they used to be. Michael, you want to?
Yes.
Explain that
there's,
one.
Maybe a lot of you have seen a lot of these around that they was made by Fenton, just a handled basket that would end up being their silver crest, which would be a clear crest on the bottom with their rose color on the inside. What makes this a little bit more unusual when I found this, and I had to do some research even on Facebook with this, is that it was satinized. And I was going like, now why is that? I've not seen that before. So I found out what it was. When the companies made these, there were no seconds. They made these things to sell. Understand? And so when they made them, if they had flaws on them, they would either discard it, which they didn't want to do because they had money into it. So what they did is that they would satinize over it. And so if you see this, it was going, and I'm not sure exactly what flaw or damage that was done to this piece, but they had to satinize it. When I saw it, I said, well, this can't be Fenton. But I was with the Fenton Facebook page. They said, oh yes, it was going to Fenton, and this is exactly what they ended up doing to be able to correct it. So at least that way they could be able to sell it for even a smaller amount of money.
And they used acid to create that satin finish. Here's a little piece of a little relish bowl by Cambridge with a wheel cutting on it. That's it. It's in their light blue color. This Cambridge Everglade, but this has like tulips and stuff on it, or sort of Everglade kind of a flower. But it also come in other things. They only made it for a couple of years, and it's pretty rare. We have one set. That's that one bowl with a buffalo hunt on it, but it's still called Everglade.
May I have your attention, please? Will Elaine Jordan please come to the front desk? Elaine Jordan, your ride is here at the front desk.
Bye-bye. This is a piece that was originally done, a pattern that was done in probably the late 1800s, and then L.G. Wright ended up getting the mold, and it's called maize because it's like corn in it, and this is a cranberry finish on it. Milk glass. This is Fenton hobnail. Look at the hobnails on it. Very, very popular pattern in the 50s, color in the 50s into the 60s. Now it's not that popular. I mean, some people love milk glass, but we sort of avoid buying it because it's, depending on what it is, sometimes the right thing can be worth buying, but otherwise it's sort of a tough sell.
It all depends on where the market. You go up to New England, milk glass is very hot for New England. They'll pay a lot of money for this, and that's very unusual. Down here, you can't sell. Same way with opalescent glass, carnival glass. It's back in carnival glass. In the Midwest, it's very hot. You go to Texas, ruby red glass, it's very hot. So it all depends on the different regions where people do collecting on what they like.
Yeah, we just found this thing at a yard sale, and it's called Caprice by Cambridge Glass, and it's in their Midnight Blue. Moonlight Blue. It's a 4-part relish, and we paid what, $20 for it, and it's going to go in the show for $195. So there's stuff out there, and this is one of Michael's favorites.
One of my favorite patterns. This was made by Duncan and Miller. They made many shapes in it that you can see, and they did them in opalescent. That you can see 3 different colors in opalescence that's in this. This pattern is called Sanibel, and it was actually named this after Sanibel Island here in Florida. And it was going like, so I love that. We went over a couple of years ago before the hurricane had hit over there, and I'd never seen it. We started crossing the bridge, and I went, stunning. I went, let's sell everything, and this is what we're moving, which luckily we did not do. But I was searching over there. I figured if any place I could be able to find the Sanibel pattern would be Sanibel. No such luck. No.
Why is it flat in the middle and not the pattern isn't all the way in the center there?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
See how the pattern isn't in the very middle? Why did they
Well,
stop the pattern?
because that was flattened out so it wouldn't
Yeah,
rock.
it was flattened out here.
Same,
It's the
same in here. Here is
Oh, the
actually
pattern's on the back, not on the
yeah.
inside.
So they ground
yeah.
this off to make it sit nice and flat
Yeah,
on a
it's
table.
flat here to where you can be able to serve in, and the pattern was made in the back.
Okay.
What is that? It doesn't look like depression glass at all.
And this is one of my favorite pieces. This is called Fostoria Hawaiian.
Beautiful.
And you don't see, they made it in 2 different colors, one more of a brown in the middle. This blue was called peacock blue, and then they did the brown, and then it was going like, and this is kind of rare to come across, especially in a piece this size. And the minute I saw it, I just knew I had to have it, so.
Yeah. And finally, this is called, made by Agro Agate. It's called slag glass. And it's just this two color combinations of the milk glass and some blue mixed in while they're making the mold. So it's it's relatively inexpensive. I brought it just to show this something else you can do with glass. Finally, there's some tricks we've learned. If you get something in here and it's really dirty, and
Or like here.
or in there as well, I use isopropyl alcohol. This is 50, but I use usually the 91%. You pour it in there, because after you've washed it, and you've got all those water beads in there, you don't want them staining the glass. So you use the isopropyl alcohol, you swirl it around in there, the isopropyl alcohol will absorb the water, you just pour it back into the bottle. And then the alcohol will just evaporate, and you leave it with no spots inside.
And it's very useful when I'm photographing glass for sale and stuff like that, so that way that has a very clean look. And when you're drying it, either with a towel or fiber cloth, you still may leave some lint on and stuff, so this way it doesn't leave any markings on it.
And then you get to the thing is like,
You can't reach in.
how you like with that one, I can take that and bend this down here, get it in there, and I can clean out and scrub on the bottom.
And this is for cleaning under like your refrigerators and stuff. There
Yeah.
are multiple uses for a lot of tools.
Yeah.
And then we found this to be able to get in that if there's a whole lot of, and a lot of people have had the vases and there's a whole lot of dirt that's in the bottom and you just can't get that out. You can soak it and soak it. And it's going like, so you end up doing that and be able to get into there and then clean all the inside surfaces.
Yeah. And it's the same with other little brushes that I'll use. Sometimes the patterns will get dirt in them and you really can't get them out, so I use some brushes and stuff. It's just ways to help clean it and make it look good. It's just tricks that we've learned over the years. And then also, fiber cloths are just, you can't live without them. So,
Okay, go ahead.
and that's it.
Also, before you leave, it was going, just so you know, we are having our first yard sale of the season. There's flyers back here on the table. If you have not picked up one, that's going to be on November 11th and 12th. And our annual Depression Glass show will be back in Tamarack again this year for our 50th year of actually doing shows. So that's going to be on February 3rd and 4th at Tamarack at their community center on Commercial Boulevard.
Wow.
Okay, question, we'll start here.
I wanted to know the,
Thank you.
how did Majolica, what year was Majolica popular and did it?
I mean, Majolica is not glass. That's porcelain. Yeah.
Oh, porcelain.
That was the mid 1800s for the most part. Yeah. And if you find really good pieces, it's some good money.
Yeah, my sister had an entire collection.
Wow.
On shelves in her home. And a big truck went by.
And shook it off.
And broke the what, I don't know what it was.
The shelf came down.
Several pieces of Majolica on the shelves in a den.
Wow.
Wild.
Oh, I'm sure. So,
Have you ever been to?
okay.
My name is Douglas.
Yes, Douglas.
Oh, you must.
Yeah. Okay. Next person, Douglas.
Thank you. I'm Douglas. I'm an FIU librarian playing hooky right now. I've got about 3 or 4 generations worth of antiques and crystal and china in my house. Longtime Southern family. Now, I have never put Waterford crystal into the dishwasher. I don't want to be lynched. So, but it's cloudy and there's nothing. I have tried. Can I use isopropyl alcohol? No.
If you're using soap and water, you dry it out and it's still cloudy, it's sick. That's it.
Okay.
It's been dishwashered.
No, I've never put it in the dishwasher. I've got like 7 dozen pieces of water.
Maybe who bought it before? Did
No,
you buy it
I
used?
bought it from Waterford Crystal.
Yeah.
Not secondhand, no.
You could try the alcohol. You can certainly try to clean it with the alcohol, see if that helps.
Should I do 50%?
I go to the 91%.
91%?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And
Oh,
there's
sure.
also another thing, as far as glass that is thick on something like that was going like, a lot of people think that there's all these newfangled ways to be able to clean it. There's really no way to be able to get that. That's damage, that's permanent on it. Another thing to do, don't as John said, don't put it in the dishwasher. We have also curators at museums that have told us, it's going, if you wash your glass, there's, go to Publix and there's one called, what is it, seventh generation?
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
yes.
it's called
Yeah.
seventh generation. Use that because that dish soap does not have any perfumes, any dyes that's in it.
Oh, it's like rather than it.
Palm olive and other things too, because that could be doing something to the glass, because a lot of this glass was made long before all of these ingredients was put into these detergents.
Exactly.
It's the
Seventh
name
generation is
of a liquid dish
a
soap.
dish soap that has no perfumes and no dyes.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, we're going to get to you.
What is Carnival glass and Vaseline glass? And my second question is, you said all the glass manufacturers, I assume in America, closed by the 80s. Is there no manufacturing going on in the Americas? Is it
There's a
all
lot
in
of,
China? Is
there's
that what's going
art
on?
glass being made by small groups of people that will make art glass, but not really big manufacturers anymore. They're basically all pretty much gone out of business. So
What's Carnival glass and Vaseline glass? What defines those two?
Carnival glass
why do they call
is
it
that. They call it's
Is it
called
'cause it's
iridized glass is
colorful,
the
or-
proper
Or
term.
they gave it away at carnivals?
Basically, this stuff was made 1905 to about 1915, 18. And at that point, people lost interest, maybe up to maybe 20, lost interest in it, and they had all these huge stockpiles. They just started selling it or giving it away to carnivals, hence the term carnival glass. And Vaseline glass,
This is the one that glows a lot and always in the yellow.
why they call it Vaseline, we have no idea.
There was a term in the Vaseline Glass Club that we belong to that said, just so that way that you do the difference between the green and the yellow. If it's green, it ain't Vaseline.
And,
I
and
guess
then,
because it kind of looks like the color of Vaseline.
I guess. Now, and the thing is, we're going to the National Vaseline Glass Convention this coming weekend. So,
And we did have a person that came to, a gentleman that used to do our glass repair in Oakland Park, and a gentleman came in and he was going like, oh, I have some Vaseline glass for you and some stemware. He goes, you're gonna love it, it's worth a whole lot of money. And he goes, would you buy it from me? He goes, oh, I'll consider it. So he came in, and actually, the kid was so stupid that was trying to sell it. He actually got some cheap wine glasses, and put Vaseline petroleum jelly.
jelly, smeared it all over
He
it.
said, this is Vaseline glass. You never know with people.
I'll come over here now. We'll get back. Okay, you first.
Is Dover Books the producer of that book, Dover?
I am-
D-O-V-E-R?
I don't think so.
Schiffer.
Schiffer,
Usually Schiffer did most of the glass.
yeah. But no, I've never heard of Dover doing any of these books. This is collector books. So, yes, ma'am.
Okay, you talked about the companies that manufactured from molds, and then they went out of business and their molds got sold to other companies, and then the value plummeted. Well, I don't understand why the value would plummet.
Well, the companies that made, let's say this.
The original companies or the?
Yeah, let's say they made this in 1920.
Yeah,
And they just had the molds in the basement. And they went, literally, and they went out of business. And so then they ended up, selling the molds. And some companies bought it and they started making it in the 1980s. They're smaller companies. They didn't design the glass themselves. They're just basically copying it.
so the quality is the same, but it's not.
Quality is not the same.
There's a difference in it.
Yeah,
The quality is usually not the same with that, and because of the fact that it was not the original company, it does not hold the value as the original
Okay.
company.
and the colors generally are not the same either.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes.
I just want to mention, Michael didn't know W. Moda, which is a phenomenal ceramic museum in Hollywood.
Not there
It
anymore.
is,
It's not there anymore.
pardon me?
They moved.
No, it's in Oakwood now.
Oh,
Yeah, it's in Oakwood, and it's just the most exquisite place. If you've never been, you must go. W. Moda.
Okay.
I have to vote there.
Yes.
I just have a dumb question. Why didn't the manufacturers make it easy?
Can't hear you.
Why didn't the manufacturers make it easy for people by putting their name on the bottom of the pieces?
I guess they felt that wasn't really important.
Why?
Because when you bought it, most of the time it had a sticker on it.
Yeah, well, the stickers always come off. you
Well,
know.
and most people took the stickers off because they didn't want a sticker on their glass. So some of the
Made it
companies,
easier for collectors.
Well,
but
they
not
were-
as much fun.
they were out of, people started collecting this stuff 30, 40, 50 years after they went out of business. So
Yeah, Karen, no one knew at the time that a lot of people today would end up buying this for being a collector of it. A lot of people bought it back then for usefulness.
Right. they use-
Today,
they
a lot of
actually
people buy
use
it because they want to collect it.
Okay, all right, just need to.
and thank you very much for inviting us back again.